Today, we re-delving into the dark corridors of history to uncover some of the most brutal execution methods ever conceived. This journey is not for the faint of heart, but it offers a stark look at the evolution of law, order, and human cruelty. Let's begin in ancient Persia with a method known as scaphism, or the boats. The condemned person was placed inside two hollowed-out logs or boats, fitted together to leave only their head, hands, and feet exposed. They were then force-fed a mixture of milk and honey, a diet that would induce severe diarrhea. More honey was slathered over their exposed skin to attract insects. The victim would then be set adrift in a stagnant pond or left in the sun. As insects swarmed and nested in their flesh and filth accumulated within the enclosure, the slow process of decay would begin. It was a drawn-out, agonizing end, designed to be as psychologically torturing as it was physically unbearable. Moving on to the Roman Empire, a civilization known for its engineering marvels and legal systems. We also find the ponicale, or the penalty of the sack. This punishment was reserved for one of the most heinous crimes in Roman society: parricide, the killing of a parent or close relative. The convicted person was first scourged, then sewn into a large leather sack. But they weren't alone. Inside the sack with them were a collection of live animals: a dog, a rooster, a viper, and a monkey. The sack was then sealed and thrown into a river or the sea. The terror of being trapped in darkness with panicked, biting animals, combined with drowning, made for a horrific and symbolic end, a chaotic death for a crime that disrupted the natural order. The Middle Ages are often seen as a particularly grim period, and the execution methods certainly reflect that. One of the most infamous is being hanged, drawn, and quartered, primarily used in England for high treason. This was a gruesome three-part public spectacle. First, the condemned was tied to a wooden frame and dragged by a horse to the place of execution. This was the drawing. Next, they were hanged by the neck, but cut down just before death, leaving them conscious for what came next. The executioner would then disembowel and emasculate the victim, often burning the entrails before their eyes. Finally, the body was quartered, beheaded, and cut into 4 pieces. The head was often displayed on London Bridge, and the quarters sent to different corners of the kingdom as a grim warning to would-be traitors. Across the globe, other cultures developed their own uniquely terrifying methods. In parts of Asia, death by 1,000 cuts, or linki, was a form of execution used from the 10th century until its abolition in 1905. This was a slow and methodical process where the executioner used a knife to remove small portions of the body over an extended period. The goal was not to kill quickly, but to maximize the number of cuts while keeping the person alive as long as possible. The public nature of the execution served as a powerful deterrent, a display of the state's ultimate power over an individual's body. Another chilling method comes from the Viking Age, the blood eagle. While its historical accuracy is debated among scholars, with some arguing it's more literary invention than actual practice, its description in Norse sagas is terrifying. The ritual supposedly involved carving the victim's back to resemble the wings of an eagle. Their ribs were severed from the spine and pulled outwards, and their lungs were then pulled out through the openings. The final flapping of the lungs, as the victim expired, was said to look like the beating of wings, hence the name. Whether real or myth, the blood eagle has cemented its place in popular culture as a symbol of Viking brutality. In early modern Europe, the breaking wheel, also known as the Catherine wheel, was a common sight at public executions, particularly in France and Germany. The condemned was tied to a large wooden wagon wheel. The executioner then used a heavy cudgel or an iron bar to shatter their limbs, striking them in the gaps between the wheel's spokes. The number of blows and whether they were aimed to be lethal or torturous depended on the sentence. After the breaking, the victim's mangled limbs were threaded through the spokes of the wheel, which was then hoisted onto a tall pole. They were left to die from shock and dehydration, exposed to the elements and preyed upon by birds, sometimes for days. Even seemingly simpler methods could be made exceptionally cruel. Take boiling, for instance. Legalized as a form of capital punishment in England during the reign of King Henry VIII, it was primarily used for poisoners. The condemned was slowly lowered, feet first, into a large cauldron of boiling water, oil, or even molten lead. Unlike a quick beheading, this was a slow, excruciating process, cooking the person alive from the outside in. The public nature of these events turned justice into a horrifying form of entertainment. So, why do these brutal methods exist? They served multiple purposes. Firstly, they were a powerful deterrent. Seeing the agonizing fate of a criminal was meant to terrify others into obedience. Secondly, they were a form of retribution, reflecting the eye for an eye principle, where the punishment mirrored the perceived severity of the crime. Finally, these public spectacles were a display of state power, reinforcing the authority of rulers and the rule of law, no matter how cruel. As societies evolved, so did ideas about justice and humanity. The Enlightenment brought a wave of reform, with thinkers arguing for punishments that were more humane and less about public spectacle. The focus slowly shifted from brutalizing the body to reforming the soul or simply removing the individual from society. Today, most countries have abolished capital punishment, and international law condemns torture and cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment. Looking back at these methods is a sobering reminder of a darker side of human history. They show us how notions of justice can be shaped by culture, fear, and power. While they may seem like relics of a barbaric past, they serve as a crucial lesson in our ongoing journey toward a more just and compassionate world. Thank you for joining us on this difficult but important exploration of history. If you found this documentary insightful, please share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the past. Let us know in the comments what historical topic you'd like to see next.